Hello, U12. We are looking at dot point 9.2.2.S4, analyze information from secondary sources to identify the products extracted from donated blood and discuss the use of these products. So let's have a look at our dot point. The first job we need to do is analyze relevant information. So it's I guess the relevance is coming into that point. So there's a skill finding relevance. To identify, that's a relatively straightforward one. The products extracted from donated blood, and discuss, which we haven't come across before, the uses of these products. Discuss largely requires context, so we're going to give you a little bit of context to blood donations in Australia, and then hopefully by the end of it you can kind of put these products into their purposes and why we might need them. Alright, so if we grab the quote from Sean Ignuzar, I can't even say his name, from the Red Cross. In Australia, we need a blood donation every 24 seconds. That is a ridiculous number of donations per year, so you can understand that perhaps we are falling well short of our need. So, speaking of the need, let's have a look at our percentage breakdown. We have 34% of blood donations going towards people with cancer and blood diseases, 19% going to people with anemia, 18% for people undergoing surgery, including open heart and burn victims. 13% is going to heart, stomach and kidney disease, and then we have orthopedic patients including fractures and joint replacements, so there's a bit of blood going there. And then the last one is obstetrics, including pregnant women, new mothers and young children. So quite a real, I'm sure you might know someone who would have been a blood donor recipient. I know that there are many people affected by some of these diseases in our community, and so you can kind of understand why donating might be a very noble thing to do. So before we kind of get to actually donating blood, we need to ensure its safety. So the first kind of port of call, if you go, oh, I want to donate blood, is they will ask you a whole bunch of questions, and these will be about your health, your sexual activity, drug use, and travel history. And you might go, what business it is of them to know this? There's two things. One, it saves them a lot of money in the long term if they don't have to test your blood if you already have an identifier that would rule you out. So if you have shared a needle because you do some sort of like amphetamine, then you are ineligible for donating blood. If you have been to a country where blood-borne diseases are present, somewhere in the tropics perhaps, they might rule you out for a certain period of time. Whether or not you are sexually active, have unprotected sex, and I believe there are even questions about whether or not you're gay, that can have an impact on your eligibility to donate blood. So, assuming that they haven't ruled you out from the survey questions, they will go on to blood testing. Now, I believe all blood is screened for these 5 infectious diseases, which is HIV, hepatitis B, hepatitis C, human T lymphotropic virus, and syphilis. You'll also be screened for malaria if you have included this in your travel history. So, they do a pretty decent job of screening some pretty serious diseases here. And you may be ineligible to donate because of that screening. Now, there was a bit of an uproar about this a little while ago, and sometimes it crops up in the media every so often. But basically, their job is not to appease your sensibilities. Their job is to keep people safe. So, if for some reason your risk factor for having some sort of infective agent is high, then you're going to be told that you can't donate blood. That's because, and it comes to the second point, is that even some of the most sophisticated tests aren't perfect. So it might be that you have contracted some sort of infectious disease, and you feel like you've recovered, but they may say, look, we don't want to take anyone who has had this disease for 6 months, and so you might be, there's a cooling off period. The other thing is that if you have some reason why you cannot donate whole blood, there are some other options that are available to you, and we're going to look at that now. So, types of blood donations. There's whole blood, and assuming you fit a couple of criterion, you can donate that every 12 weeks. I believe you have to be over the age of 16. It might even be 17 now. You've got to be over 50 kilos, and you have to be relatively fit, or healthy, I think it is. Maybe not fit, but healthy enough. The other option is that you donate plasma. And you can do this every 2 weeks, and it does it through a process called apheresis. Now, apheresis is it's very similar to extracting whole blood, but there's another tube going back into you, and they return your red blood cells, which is great because if you don't lose your red blood cells, then your body can replace the fluid component much faster than it can replace the red blood cell content of your body. So that's a pretty cool donation. Similar to that, platelets are also extracted via apheresis, and that means that plasma is returned to you, and red blood cells are returned to you, so you can do that far more quickly. Now, platelets are little fragments, so we've seen recently blood slides that look similar to this, where we've had to draw them, and just to put into context about in terms of size, these little platelets here are much smaller than red blood cells, and they are, there's a bit of debate, some people call them cells, some people call them cell fragments, but they are little units of clotting is essentially their job, which makes them very important for people who might be wanting a blood donation, as if they're going through surgery or are a trauma victim or something like that. Alright, so I put this picture in mainly to show you that there are, you've got our collection methods here. So you've got apheresis, you can get platelets or plasma, and then you've got whole blood, and you can see that through centrifugation, separation and pooling you can get all of these products. I won't get into them just yet, but then there's this section over here that's basically that if you you can treat, it's not fresh, you can treat this these materials, you can break them down, you can do a whole bunch of stuff, and you can get some very specific blood products from here, and that's great. It just means that there's a little bit more involved in getting these ones here. So there's a bunch of different products that we can use, and let's have a look at a few of them. So the first one, whole blood. It's used to treat patients who have lost large volumes of blood. You can imagine that generally these people are going to be victims of some sort of trauma, or are undergoing surgery where there might have been a significant bleed. This is because the job of blood, there's a lot of them, and by losing a lot of it, you lose blood volume, and you also oxygen saturation. You've got issues with immunity. Like, there's a bunch of reasons why whole blood is amazing and should be given to people in high risk with that trauma. Plasma, because there are so many dissolved products inside of plasma, and one of those things is are proteins. You might want to up the protein count for someone, and plasma might be the way to go. It's also quite a useful tool to increase blood volume and therefore blood pressure. Alright, so anti-D is given to newborn to prevent rhesus disease. So we'll get into a bit of a conversation about rhesus disease a little bit later on in the year. But essentially, when we talk about, what's your blood type, and we say, oh, I am A negative or A positive, the rhesus disease is a condition that is associated with that negative or positive symbol in newborns in relation to the mother's symbol. So we can have a bit of a chat about that later, but that's what that is all about. It's a blood product. The next one is normal immunoglobulin. It helps prevent hepatitis A, so that's pretty cool. Then we have hyperimmunoglobulin. It helps protect against viral diseases, including chickenpox and tetanus. We have our platelets. These are clotting factors of the blood, very important. And obviously we have red blood cells. If you have low oxygen saturation in your blood, you might want a donation of blood cells. On this note, the idea of blood doping is when someone extracts blood from themselves, keeps those red blood cells separate, and then pumps their body back with those red blood cells after their body has reproduced the appropriate number, and they get a boost in red blood cells. So that's blood doping. That happens in athletes quite a bit. It's quite easy to test for those, so is a pretty tired way of cheating, I think. Alright, then we have white blood cells. We generally know that white blood cells are associated with the immune system, so an increase in those will help maintain immune system functions. So we have intragram. Alright, this helps boost immune system after bone marrow transplants. Very important component, particularly when we're talking about transplants from another person, because they will often need to take immunosuppressant drugs in order to receive a transplant from someone else. So intragram is a very important blood product for those patients. And finally, we have chiroprecipitate. Now, this contains other clotting factors that are similar to platelets, but are in function, but are different. And they're very good at stopping the bleed quickly. So you use them for people with massive bleeding. Now, these are not all the products of blood, but they are a very good summary of a few of the relevant ones. What your job is going to be is putting this information in the context of, why do we need blood? Who's using it? Is it safe? And it may help you understand your assignment into artificial blood a little bit better, particularly from the standpoint of that we're not meeting our donated blood product requirements. So perhaps that's one reason why artificial blood is being developed. Right, you can't have a video about blood without including a screenshot from the movie Blade. They waste a lot of blood in this movie. But anyway, go donate blood. You're all old enough. I don't think many of you have tattoos. Alright, I'm fairly certain you'll pass the questionnaire. Go do it. It's very honourable. Catch you later.